So I had the pleasure, I had the honor of hosting a Women in College Sports Zoom panel with UConn track and field alumni Catherine Surin and Nyanka Joseph, and UConn women's basketball alum Batuli Camera. And it was a great panel where we talk about mental health for student athletes, and we talk about just surviving being a student athlete and relationships, things like that. So definitely check out that panel. Link is down below. So why am I making this video? Well, after the panel ended, I opened up the floor for questions, comments, whatever. And this is the comment that I got.
You guys are all track stars. I thought this was going to be like a combination of the different sports, so this might not affect you as much, but I assume you guys must have girlfriends that play basketball. Have they ever complained about, like, the reason why we have men and women's sports is because obviously we're built different, but when you watch these college basketball games and you see our daughters playing against young ladies who are built like guys, it seems like they're at a disadvantage. So I wondered, like, have you ever heard women complain about competing with women who are built like guys?
I mean, you get comments every now and then, but I think that's just like, I try not to body shame people because it's just like, people like, oh, you're too skinny, or like, so like, I think you have to like, it's kind of like walking a fine line, right? Like, I guess you can kind of affect your genetics, but I think that's a different conversation. I think like, if your parents are muscular and you're muscular, then like, do you just stop lifting because like you're muscular? Like, Maybe, I think it's like a very layered conversation.
Let me ask you better. They're saying that they can't get the ratings in women's sports. And I know for your generation, you guys think a little bit differently. You're a little bit more liberal. But the consumers of sports tend to be men over 28. And guys in that demographic are not comfortable with certain things. So I can guarantee right now, if they had two leagues, if they had a WNBA that were athletes who look like compared to women athletes who look like some of the women in the WNBA who have a certain lifestyle, I guarantee Faith's league would generate more revenue so they can pay their players more. The only way I think that pay inequality is going to end when they separate the two. Because I've spoken to a lot of guys, we love women's sports. We have daughters, but we're not going to go pay to see essentially women who are built like guys competing in sports. I can guarantee you right now, if the NBA was 80% of guys who look like Little Richard, it would fail tomorrow.
That's not a gender bias, I think, at play. And I was kind of having this discussion yesterday on Twitter in regards to like men being unwilling to listen to female rap, right? It's like there are talented female rappers who could spit. And of course, rap is a little different because it's not as genetics based. But I think rap is a perfect example because it's not genetics, yet men still choose to avoid listening to women regardless of their talent. So much so in fact that they will say that they don't have any talent. So while I understand the point is that, like maybe if there were more muscular women, that men would watch it more, right? It's like
the exact opposite. What I'm saying, if the WNBA looked more like Faith, I think they would get more viewership and they could pay the athletes more. But as long as 60% of them look like Whoopi Goldberg with a bald haircut, it's not going to sell.
Well, I think we can disagree there. I don't think that
revenue right now.
I don't necessarily think that the way women look are the problem. I guess from the conversation that I've had, I've heard a lot of guys say like they just don't compete as like they don't see the female athletes competing in the same quality as men. They're like, okay, well, I am watching a girl who jumps lower, or I'm watching a game that's not as competitive. And again, it's relative to them speaking, but I think, again, it goes back to like gender bias. Like, okay, I would rather watch the more aggressive men play.
I always thought it's more like a talent piece, not really the
talent. It's just
of like, oh well, girls don't jump, women don't dunk as often as guys. So I never actually hear the physical appearance part.
Well, I'll tell you right now, if we was to poll a bunch of guys who are, say, and I don't know who the age range she was talking to, but for guys, say, over 30, if I asked them, what would you want to watch? Women's track or a women's basketball game, I guarantee you more will watch track because we're going to see women athletes performing. That's why it's called a women's sport, but they're not going to watch the WNBA. I guarantee you right now, make 2 leagues, and I'll bet everything I have in the bank right now that the WNBA, who has players that look like Faith, are going to generate more male viewership than the other league.
But at that point, it's like, okay, do I want to be objectified for you to want to watch my sport?
No,
like,
see, and it's just
no, because like, and essentially, I'm sorry, I don't want to be that person, but essentially, you're like, well, if they look prettier, guys who want to watch, and it's like, okay, well, do I want you to watch because I look prettier? Like, is that the reason you should be watching my game? And I think you have to be careful in how you say things and why you're saying them.
No,
because Kenneth, ultimately, your argument, unless I am misunderstanding, is that, well, if the girls look less muscular, then the guys would be more willing to watch them. Why do you care how I look? Do you not care for the game that I'm playing? And again, the conversation that I have had with guys is like, there are teams that they don't want to watch because the teams suck. And in their eyes, at least the guys that I have had a conversation with, it's, well, I could watch guys who are significantly better play the game. I can't dispute because I don't watch basketball, but that's the argument that I have gotten, is that, well, I don't want to watch this guy's team that suck. Why would I watch a female team that according to them has lower quality of
right? And for each guy is different, but I'm saying there is there's different reasons for the basketball. But as far as living in the real world, everything is about marketing, and we can be delusional if we want to, but there's a difference between, like I said, if the NBA looked like a bunch of guys who look like Little Richard, it would not give viewership. So it goes both ways. Women don't want to watch a bunch of feminine guys run up and down the basketball court. Guys don't want to watch a bunch of masculine women run up a basketball court. I'm not saying they gotta look like supermodels, but you want them to look like women. We just don't want to.
My fiance is disputing your claims very strongly.
Oh,
He's-
don't bring Brian into this. Do not bring Brian into this.
on the court. Okay, I don't watch basketball. He just gave me a whole list of them, and I'm gonna. I mean, he's with me, so I'm gonna trust his.
Okay, how old is he? And what is his race, if you don't mind me asking?
He's in his late 20s, and he is also black.
Different generation. Brothers who are a little bit older were different mentality.
I don't know. Old guys, get out the game. Like, if you don't want to watch I would
But
definitely.
we like sports, but we just don't.
Then watch the sports that make you feel good. Like, you don't have to watch women if you don't want to watch women. That's okay. And if you want to watch like prissy girls, go watch cheerleading. Like, they exist there.
That's
like, why should a female athlete appeal to you through her beauty for you to want to watch her sport? And like, I don't care how old you are. That's that's a seriously gender loaded statement to make.
Where do I begin? Where do I start? It just opens up the conversation of that Black women have been saying. How is it that Black men claim to want equality, claim to want to empower the Black community, and yet feel that they have the audacity to make a statement like, well, despite your accomplishments, despite your success, despite your qualifications, despite your hard work, we're not going to acknowledge you because you don't look a certain way. How is that different from what white people say when it comes to racism? Despite your accomplishments, despite your success, despite your qualifications, despite your hard work, if you don't have a certain skin color, we're not going to acknowledge you. How is that different? And then to have the audacity to say, oh, well, we should create separate leagues for women who look like women, whatever that means, just so it's more appealing. Regardless of the talent of the athlete, just because it's more appealing. So we're asking, so we're looking for segregated sports based on appearance. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? And then to just take away even from talking about women and these ridiculous beauty standards that clearly still exist, to say, well, we wouldn't even watch the NBA if men didn't look like men. That's just a lie. Because I'm sorry, if somebody can dunk, and that's impressive regardless. But it's insulting even to men, because I know plenty of guys, gay or straight, who may not fully look like dudes in terms of if you're looking for like the big brolic body type. Not everybody looks like that. Some have very androgynous features. Some are very masculine. Some are very feminine looking. Regardless, the beauty of sports is that we don't look at appearance. We look at, can you do what you can do? Are you talented at what you can do? Which is initially what I thought this conversation was going. And although I have my own take on the idea of women's sports not being as interesting or things like that, at least that's a comment on athletic capability in an industry that focuses on athletics. But to say that regardless of athletics, even if you are at the top of your game, we're not going to acknowledge it because you don't look a certain way is insulting and disrespectful and ultimately lazy. Because rather than to say, hey, we've perpetuated a culture in which we really have not respected women in their respective sports and their respective fields, and we should reprogram ourselves to look at women and their capabilities for what they are. Instead, we're going to continue with this harmful thought process, with this disrespectful thought process, and we're going to continue to pass these thoughts along to our next generation is lazy and selfish. Because the only reason you're not willing to fight and you're not willing to change the status quo and not willing to change beauty standards, in fact, eliminate them in sports, is because it works in your benefit. It's frustrating. And I wanted to take the approach of, if I ignore it, if I don't make this video, if I don't make this comment, if I just delete that part of the panel, then it's just taking the high road. The problem is, and we've seen this with the Black Lives Matter movement, is that ignoring something and pretending it doesn't exist in the hope that one day it doesn't exist doesn't work. Okay? It just doesn't. And the problem is, people with his similar arrogant beliefs find their ways to positions of power because people confuse overconfidence with competence. They confuse that. Just because somebody has the audacity to walk into a women's college sports panel and tell a bunch of accomplished women, regardless of appearance, accomplished women, that despite your accomplishments in your respective fields, we're not going to acknowledge it because you don't look a certain way. It's a level of arrogance and entitlement that I can't even fathom. But unfortunately, we live in a culture where we think that level of arrogance, entitlement somehow equates to competence, and it clearly does not. So I have to make this statement because people with those similar sexist, colorist, racist beliefs find themselves in positions of power despite how much we claim on social media and to the external world that we aren't as shallow as a community as we are. And we, I mean the United States and even maybe on a global scale. So I have to make this comment because this is to remind others the way I got reminded that although we may surround ourselves with role models and we surround ourselves with news sources that highlight our talents, our capabilities, that highlight all of that, which is highly encouraged, we still need to keep in mind that we've come a long way, but we still have a very, very long way to go. And this is not meant to discourage anyone. My men who don't look like men, my women who don't look like women, my women who do, my men who do look like whatever particular gender they associate with, is not to discourage you from accomplishing the great things that you intend on accomplishing. It's to remind you that we do have a fight to go through. We do have to keep pushing and we do have to keep encouraging each other. And we can't be blinded by our own successes, that there are others who may be in similar positions who still have to face barriers that we may have just overcome or we may have been lucky not to fully experience. So for everyone out there who's got something to fight for, keep fighting, keep pushing, and we're gonna get through this despite certain opinions out there. Bye.